Hello everybody and welcome to another video. In this video, I basically want to talk about the string variable. We talked about what variables are. They're essentially a way to allow us to be able to store values and keep data. So later on we can use it and so that we can simplify our program. So that way, let's say for example, I had the number 10. I don't have to keep typing 10 every time. I could introduce a variable that will allow me to use the value of 10. And so that's basically what variables did for us. We also need to keep in mind the fact that the variable that we are storing must match the type that it's set equal to. So, for example, if I had int x, I can only, whatever is on the right-hand side of the equal sign must match whatever's on the left-hand side. So, for example, if I'm declaring an int, whatever's on the right-hand side has to be an int. So, for example, it has to be 14. It can't be like 14.7 because that's a double, or it can't be something in strings, or it can't be something of like true or false. It has to be the exact same type. So that's just a little refresher on variables if you guys forgot that. So that's that. So now I want to basically introduce the idea of strings. So let me go ahead and write a program. So system.out.println. Remember how I said everything that's inside the println, if you want to print something, it has to be in quotes. So let's go ahead and let's see what this prints out. Let me go ahead and go back. For those of you guys who forgot what this does, this will basically print out, if I can spell correctly, it should print out hey there. And let me go ahead and compile it. And let me go ahead and run it. So what that did is it basically printed out hey there. All we did is we said, okay, whenever you want to print out something, put it in quotes. And I said, don't worry about why that is, because that will be later. And now here's the later. This is basically known as a string. So anything in quotes is a string. So I could store this as a string. So in order to do that, I need to introduce the idea of the variable string. So string starts with a capital S. It doesn't start with a lowercase s. It starts with a capital S. So string. And I call it word. And it works exactly like a variable. And here's the thing about strings. Strings can only be strings. So for example, you can't say string word equals 10 because if I try to compile this, this will give me the same error saying incompatible types. It cannot be converted to a string, meaning 10 cannot be converted to a string. So strings have to be strings, meaning they have to be in quotes. And so this is basically the syntax for strings. So in this case, I have a string called word, which is set equal to hey there. So string word equals hey there. And if I run it, nothing happens. That's because there's nothing in the println. If I actually want to print it out, I could do the exact same thing I did with other variables. For example, I could print it out. I could use it later. That's just the properties of variables. And so if I run it, we can see it printed out hey there. So that's basically the idea of strings. I could get more fancy. I could say hey there, I am doing well. That's basically strings. I could also be more fancy. I could say I could make this just say an empty string, so meaning I can print out nothing. So that's just the syntax for an empty string. Oh, sorry, there's an L in there. Let me just go ahead and I can print out nothing. So that's just basically an introduction to strings. We'll use it a lot. Now here's an interesting fact. Remember how I said we'll dissect this main method throughout this course? Like we'll talk about it every time we cover the topics. And I just said for now, just assume that whenever you have main method, this is the syntax for it. As you can see here, string. Hey, we know what that is. So the main method is involving and dealing with some sort of string of some kind. And we don't know what this bracket does, but we know that this has to be some sort of string that it's working with and dealing with, which we'll talk a lot about later on when we get into it. But this is basically the idea of strings and how they're declared. So whenever you see something like capital S string with nothing around it, for example, if I just had string A equals something, you could already look at it and say, hey, this is a variable of string. I know what it does. It's going to store some value of a string. And so that's basically an introduction to strings. I hope this video served and helped you clarify and helped you understand what strings really are. We'll use strings throughout many of the programs that we write. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in another future video.